Welcome to another very exciting episode of Deep Dive with OA. I am Omar Abedin, Project Director at NIC Karachi, and today I'm joined by someone who is known as the startup lawyer of Pakistan. Mubariz, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me, Umar. Really enjoy the show. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. So when I refer to Mubariz as Pakistan startup lawyers, because there are some people कि जब आप सोचते हैं स्टार्टअप्स के बारे में तो उनका नाम जो है आपके जहन में खुद से आ जाता है. एंड इट्स बिकॉज यू बीन वेरी एक्टिव इन द स्पेस फॉर I mean, you look very, very young.
I'm slightly older than...
I know, you're slightly older than you look, but nevertheless, you've been very active and present in the entrepreneurial and startup space for longer than anyone else that I can think of from a legal perspective. So I'm looking forward to this discussion. So let's jump right into it. What are the top 3 challenges facing startups in Pakistan today?
Thank you very much, Umar. When we think about challenges that are facing startups, it's the question is, it really varies from startup to startup, person to person, sector to sector, industry to industry, and depending on what each business needs, right? I think सबसे बड़ा challenge, if I can speak about, is the fact that everyone is chasing the same form of capital, which is venture capital, without everyone understanding that their business is right for venture capital or not. To understand venture capital, what kind of business is right for venture capital is a business that can, in a very short span of time, can yield exponential returns, like 100x, like 15, at least 10x is what people say, but to be honest, for a VC to really make money, it has to be a lot more than 10x.
Sure.
So that is kind of what the main consideration is there. There are a lot of very, very good businesses which don't have different forms of capital available. There are a lot of good cash generating assets, potentially good cash generating assets, which will never be real venture plays, but they don't have any sort of any other form of financing available,
right?
Any other form of capital available. I think if I were to then go down to the second set of challenges is policy-wise, I think we have government over the past couple of years has done a lot, like regulators such as SECP, State Bank of Pakistan, not FBR, but State Bank of Pakistan and SECP primarily, have done quite a bit. They have gone down out of their way to facilitate a lot of changes. Now, when it comes to implementation of those changes, we are still lacking. But I feel like there will be time that will be required, and experience that will be required to do it. So to give you an example, State Bank allowed us to set up holding companies, but the process with the banks is still kind of difficult. SECP has now allowed private companies to set up employee stock options, but the process is still not clear. So while we have done the policy work or headline policy, we still have to make the process simpler, easier for implementation for companies. Yeah. That's a challenge. Lastly, I feel like hiring is and HR is still a challenge in Pakistan, and for specific resources. Like I would say, having a great sense of product is still a very rare commodity in Pakistan as far as hiring the right product team is concerned. We'll have great developing talent, but product is not just developing, right? It's also because we did not do this. I mean, Pakistan has been exporting a lot of IT services, but those are services around technical capability as opposed to just
product. More basic stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's people who know quite a bit of advanced stuff as well, but yeah, to your point, it's not prevalent, and the best talent leaves. Simple as that.
Yeah. Okay. So this is an interesting way to structure this discussion, right? So let's start with the first one. Not every business is a startup, and not every business is right for venture capital. So let's talk about the second piece first. I'm sure you've dealt with more than your fair share of people who want to enter the VC space. They're private equity investors in Pakistan, or they're large local groups. They're very curious about venture capital. They don't understand it. How can we help them to wrap their heads around VC as an asset class? What can we do to make their path to this point easier?
Oh, that's a very good question. So I would say multiple facets to it, right? Number one, what Pakistani capital holder, I mean, the SAIT, Pakistani Business Group, whatever you want to call it, I would say someone who controls a lot of capital in Pakistan, they have never invested in people, right? They've always invested in assets. In Pakistan's history, capital has only flown to assets, and typically non-productive assets, like real estate. वो एक plot है defense में, there's just sand and there's nothing else there, and billions of dollars are just trapped in non-productive assets.
Yes.
That is because of two things. Number one, rigged casino economy, where you have less risk, and the whole process is rigged, where a few people stand to make insane casino type of returns. So we, as Pakistani capital holders, it's kind of ironic. The fact that they're in Pakistan, they are assuming so much risk anyway. So many things can just change sitting there. But the things that they invest in are not things that are very risky asset classes.
Yes.
The reason why they do not invest in people is because of a weak enforcement mechanism. We Pakistanis don't trust each other because they know that going to court, etc., is not going to yield anything. Venture capital, especially Pakistan, is only seeing early stage investments right now, right? The entire huge amounts, the record breaking amounts we see are all in early stage, pre-seed, seed, Series A, one Series B, two Series Bs. Early stage venture investment is literally all about investing in people. It is essentially about
100%.
taking a minority stake. It is about taking almost no control, and it is about really trusting the person with that money.
Yes.
The problem with Pakistani capital holder or your Pakistani SAIT is that they have viewed people as commodities all their life. Their entire business has been either manufacturing, and see, this is from when we move from the industrial age to the information era, when we're moving towards such a big shift, human resource is no longer a commodity. पहले तो था एक factory है, उसमें your job is to pick this up and put it here, for example. Now it's an information age where your job, your technical capability is unique. It is not something that you can just pick someone else and put them there, right? And if your wealth has been made in the other era, you don't really have a real appreciation of this. So again, it comes down to appreciating, understanding that human resource is unique, and especially in this sector, so that you need to invest in those people, and not everyone can do what they do. So this whole mindset around, we'll hire a team that will build the same thing, it's just not true.
Yeah.
The other thing is that I think this monumental shift in Pakistan that we're seeing with VC is ESOP, where you are saying that employees and the best resources would need to own the business, and they deserve to get extreme exponential returns by just coming and spending time with us. And the best people want to own a piece of the business, otherwise they're not interested. So yeah, I think when this mindset shift happens, only then will we move towards the local capital being allocated towards VC, and if not VC, then small cap PE as well, which is something I'm quite big on for Pakistan. Yeah.
So that's a really interesting perspective. I have to tell you, I had not thought of it in those terms until now.
Yeah.
But I think you're absolutely right, because just yesterday I've had two separate meetings. One local investment group had come in to meet with one of the startups at NIC. And this was actually their second meeting, so they're quite interested in this space. And their management team is trying to figure out how to position it to the board. Because we've told them that, we don't encourage predatory practices at NIC. So if you want to come in and buy 80% of a company, which considers themselves a startup right now and is raising, let's say, $2 million at valuation of $20 million, they're not going to give you 80% of the company for $2 million or even $5 million. That's not the purpose of this. But I think the fundamental underpinnings of that discussion are rooted in exactly that, कि यार ये बंदा तो replaceable है. अगर बंदा replaceable है, बंदा commodity है, तो फिर उसकी IP की क्या value होगी?
तो अभी मुझे 80% दे दो, उसके बाद तुम घर चले जाओ.
फिर नहीं, फिर नौकरी करो मेरे साथ.
Exactly.
अब उनको ये नहीं समझ में आता कि इस बंदे ने नौकरी छोड़ी है, right? He's
Exactly.
left a job, taken a massive risk, embarked on a journey of 3 years to get to where he is today, where he's raising a round of, such a large amount in Pakistani terms, at a valuation which in Pakistani terms is quite, substantial, and they just don't get it. So, but the root of that is the fact that the person is not seen as the creator of value. Wow.
Yeah, it's just that you don't recognize the uniqueness of human resources.
So with the economy changing and the person or the founder being the root of that change, driving that change, is something that is very hard for the older school industrialists to swallow. यार ये बहुत interesting construct है भाई.
I'll tell you one more thing around the same thing. People who bring about material change in society, there's one thing that Babar Khan, wo Tajir ka jo founder, he says, which I love, is that you have to will a company into existence.
Yes.
It doesn't exist. If things keep going the way they are, your company will not just come about. It will not come about in a natural course of events. You have to bring that change in. You have to, every single day, spend hours and hours and hours doing from mundane tasks to big complicated tasks to bring that thing into existence. People who can do that have this one very fundamental mindset. And this is why I love working with founders. And this is why I chose this space to work in, because as a lawyer, whatever industry you work in, those are the people you hang out with. And the reason why I chose to hang out with founders, generally, is that they truly believe that the world is a malleable place, that they can change things in the world around them, that if I keep going at something, I can bring something to it. So they're not people who are like, yeah, if the wind is blowing this way, this is how we're going to keep moving. They're like, no, I can.
I will go against the grain.
I can, I can build something. And a lot of times they'll fail as well, because there are a lot of things they did not appreciate were reality, and that's fine. Finding people with that mindset, number one, is very hard. Because that mindset, and let's be honest, cannot come without some sort of privilege, without some sort of upbringing, without some sort of where you have been assured of certain things in life. Only then you can think about changing the world, when things around, when you know where your next meal is coming from, where you know you have a roof on your head.
There's a certain level of entitlement there.
Certain level of entitlement there. Of course, it is. And we need that. Not that privilege is important is the only way we've seen that, but it's in more cases than not, there would be some sort of privilege. There would be some
if Maslow's hierarchy's first 3-4 levels are met, only then can you strive for self-actualization.
Exactly,
right?
exactly. So, and there are people who don't belong to privileged backgrounds, but they really truly feel strongly enough about a problem and then they go and solve it. So, that is not a commodity. That mindset, that the person who has that skill set, who has that desire to build something, it's not replaceable.
No.
And you can't find. So what the decision as a venture investment, what you make is, this guy is going to make something valuable, and this guy is backable, or this woman, by guy I mean this person, is backable, and with them I can make a substantial amount of money. So that's what you need to understand, and that's what these people, most investors, need to understand in order to really do early stage venture investments right. Otherwise, you can stick to later stage, where you have a running business, you have running metrics, you can see them, you can monitor. Yeah, it's less risky, but then you enter at a much higher price.
Yeah. And that's the part that I think a lot of these investors are kind of realizing, consciously, subconsciously, कि यार, all of these assets are getting built in my country with foreign money.
Yeah.
And I'm probably going to end up buying them back at that 100x multiple. Yeah. And I'll be okay with that. Because at that point, I'll have a majority stake. But right now, I'm not willing to invest and take that bet on these guys, because I might help them break out of that circle of middle class life that they have. They might become as wealthy as I am today.
I'll tell you one thing about the Sate. I mean, if you're using that term, someone with generational wealth, one of the biggest things that what do they do on a day-to-day basis? Because their assets are generating cash and they have a lot of money. On a day-to-day basis, they're more worried about capital allocation than generation. जो बनाया है वो कहाँ लगाएं, ठीक है. I'm pretty sure on any given day for someone with a lot of capital, there are 10 people who come and tell him how to spend their capital.
Sure.
Or how to allocate their capital.
Sure.
I can also understand if there's a certain degree of mistrust because I'm sure all of them have been burnt as well. They've given someone money and like, yaar, ye kahani bata raha tha, aur aisa kuch bhi nahi tha, aur ye nahi tha, wo nahi tha, right? And I'm sure. I don't think there's this big malicious intent out there. I don't think there's this big this big grand conspiracy कि यार किसी को भी उससे नहीं करने देना. But what and not that you're implying it either, but what I'm saying is that there is this mistrust in just someone's ability. कोई आके मुझे बोलता है यार कि जी मैं अभी पिच टेक है, हम ये बनाने जा रहे हैं और मेरी कंपनी की मैं आपसे $1 million ले लें 10% के लिए, valuing my company at $10 million. Now, if I'm a Pakistani businessman who has seen businesses in Pakistan, and which comes to our first question around different types of capital, I understand how hard it is for something to be valued at $10 million in Pakistan.
Yeah.
It's 1.5 billion rupees, roughly.
Give or take.
Right,
yeah.
give or take. 1.5 billion rupees का अब मैं ये सोच रहा हूँ कि यार सिर्फ एक चीज़ की पेपर पे वैल्यू नहीं होती, एक चीज़ होती है कि कोई और इंसान आएगा and they will pay me cash for that money. So they'll come and say, listen, sell me your shares at a valuation of $10 million. I'm like, who would do that? Because I don't see a lot of people in Pakistan doing it. So that's a very legitimate question.
Yeah.
And it's like keeping blind faith that one day someone will come in and buy this business for $1 billion, and if that's the play, if I'm going for a valuation of 50 million, 60 million, I'm saying that this will be $1 billion company at one point, right? I would just, and it's a very legitimate question to ask, who would come and buy this for $1 billion?
Yeah, I get that question at least 15 times a month.
Yeah, because
कि भाई ये $85 million जो एयरलिफ्ट में आए कौन पागल हो गए, कहाँ से पैसे आए?
And they're saying कि इनके निकलेंगे कैसे पैसे? Who is gonna buy? And they're saying अच्छा पाकिस्तान में कितनी कंपनीज हैं जो $1 billion से ऊपर है वैल्यू में? There's probably like 10, 12, and those are massive companies, and they have been in existence for a very long time. So I understand the skepticism. That is why I think the missing form of capital in Pakistan and the real opportunity, not that venture is not real, it's just that limited for very few, but the real opportunity in Pakistan is businesses that are going to be cash generating, businesses where founders have the expertise to do it, businesses that will never be 50, 60, maybe not even $100 million. They would be $5 million, $10 million, real businesses.
But they'll generate money.
They'll generate
forever.
cash.
Yeah,
They will not be super risky. They are, for example, you're selling juice, fruit juice, and you have multiple outlets. I think that's a very valuable business because there's a market for that, and you can prove that. You can prove traction with a very little money. You can start with multiple outlets and you can test. You will find founders who can do it. It's much harder to find founders who can build a venture and scale the venture to worth a certain thing, but it's much easier to find someone who can do a diagnostics business because that skill set exists, that market exists, that experience exists, that localized knowledge exists. So yeah, my thesis on Pakistan is that this missing capital, where you need, so sure, your companies will not be valued 10 million. It won't be a venture deal where an investor is coming in for $1 million. They will be coming in for a 10% stake. They'll be coming in at maybe a 30% stake. In some cases, maybe even 51% stake, but they'll be risking the capital. And those are material, real businesses which can even exit on the GEM board, which can even exit on the PSX.
Yeah.
And I feel like that is what's missing in Pakistan in terms of capital.
So that's what you call micro cap PE.
I got small cap PE, micro
Sure.
cap PE, whatever term you want to give it. Yeah, but I think that's where if you want to make real change and bring out the real entrepreneurial culture in Pakistan, that is what you need today. Because venture is going to serve a very tiny fraction. Most people are going to fail. And what I see is, and I know a lot of people reach out to me just for fundraising advice. A lot of founders do. Someone in the packaging business doing a phenomenal job, making good returns. But I have to tell them, like, listen, dude, this will never be a venture play. No VC, even if they want to, even if they love you, they just can't invest in it because how VC makes money is a whole different thing, right? And that's a whole different, we need to really dive into how a venture capital fund makes money in order to understand whether our business can help a VC fund make money and whether our business is investable.
Just to clarify for founders कि भाई ये बिजनेस आपका वीसी के लिए सही है कि नहीं?
No, I think that is something that most founders should really truly understand in the beginning so that they can not waste time chasing a form of capital that will never be suitable for their business, right? So those सवाल हैं. Is VC money right for you? And are you right for VC? So both questions go hand in hand, right? And the answer to both questions can come from very simple back of the napkin understanding of how a VC fund makes money. So for example, there's a $25 million VC fund. ठीक है? VC fund hota kya hai? It's essentially a few high net worth individuals or institutions or DFIs, etc., saying that we have $100 million. We've invested 98 in safe, secure assets. 2, we can invest in high risk. Even if they don't work out, we'll have, and if they work out, then it'll be great. But if it doesn't work out, sure, we can risk it. So we have different risk profiles. So they give like $1 million to a VC. VC tells them, goes to 25 different people, let's say, and takes $1 million from each and makes a $25 million fund. Tells them, okay, listen, we will invest it the way we want in things that we like, and we will return it to you after 10 years. Till then, I'm talking very approximations, moti baat, badi baat hai. Usme, not getting into technicalities. Now, if it's a 25 million fund, the VC takes 20% from it as their management fee over 10 years. So it's 2% a year over 10 years. So 25 million में से 20%, 5 million तो VC की जेब में चला गया to run it. अब बचे 20 million of invested capital. उसमें से आप admin expenses भी निकालते हैं. चलें, let's say 0.5% to 1% in
admin, legal, all the other
वो
stuff.
सारा वहाँ पे चला गया. But that's a small amount. When you're investing the remaining $20 million or say 19 something million dollars, what are you investing in? So सबसे पहले आप, how do you make money? So for example, अगर मैंने 19 million में से अब एक startup में मैंने $1 million डाले, ठीक है? That startup gives me for my $1 million 10x, which is what everyone thinks that every startup's expectation है. In terms of my $25 million fund, which I have to return, that $1 million became $10 million. How much of the fund am I returning? Half of my fund. All investors, agar main kisi ke paas jaun 10 saal baad, after 10 years, I tell them, listen, only half of your money is now, I'm giving you half your money back and no return. I'm a failed VC. I'm not someone who would ever be trusted with money again, or would be able to take money from people. If 90% of my investments are going to fail, the 2 that will work need to cover for the failures and need to cover for things on top, right? So, for example, in my $19 million or $20 million, I have invested $2 million in 10 companies, and my 8 companies failed, and the 2 that worked, the $4 million that worked, if that returned 10x to me, then I have returned $40 million, but I took 25. Over 10 years, that's not a good return. $15 million over 25 is not a very good return.
No.
What is a good return? After 10 years, if I come back and hand back to my investors $150 million, which is a 6x, I'm talking about a material return, because or maybe as a VC, how do I make money? Besides my management fee, I make money by getting the 20% of whatever profits I made. So agar maine the carry, agar maine 150 million, 150 million, if I'm returning, 125 million is the profit, and I get to keep 20% of that, which is a substantial amount. In order to give $150 million back, that $4 million in 2 startups that worked, what multiple do they need to return? At a 20 multiple, it's $80 million. At a 40 multiple, it's 160. So it's rough.
So it's a 40x.
40x is what my expectation is, right? In 10 years.
Yeah.
Now, typically you will meet a VC that is in year 3-4 vintage anyway, right? So that's their deployment period, 3 usually max. So what you're saying is within the space of 8 to 10 years, 7 to 8 years, I will give you a 40x return. Not just a valuation return, an exit. Someone will come and buy your shares for 40 times what you paid in for it.
Yeah.
Right? You can't do that with a normal packaging business. You can't do that with the juice business that I was talking about. You can't do that with a restaurant.
Even the world's best juice business isn't going to be
doing that unless you have something super proprietary about it and stuff. So you can only do that. The reason why VCs around the world have really truly only made money on software, right? SaaS, because the beauty of SaaS is that even as your revenues grow, your cost is stable.
Yeah.
And the delta. So whether one person uses my software or whether 1 million use my software, my cost is roughly the same. And it's so easy to replicate. It's so easy to scale. SaaS is also extremely difficult to do, but VCs have typically made money there. So what Pakistani founders need to understand is that the business that you're doing has to be able to give that 40, 50x return in 5 to 7 years for a VC to think that you're interesting enough. Because now that VCs know that 80-90% of all businesses that they invest in will fail, what they need to do is that to ensure that every business that they invest in is at least capable on paper of giving that 40 to 50x return for them, because they don't know which ones are going to fail.
Right.
They just know that.
So at least theoretically, there should be a plan to get to that 40.
Yeah, and another thing that VCs look for is that somewhere in the world has built a business like that, which has returned venture money, right? So that's one thing that I wish Pakistani founders would understand better, so that they don't waste their time chasing a business. Now, flip that aside. It is much easier to, for example, if you raise money, and this is why founders, when they start asking for too high a valuation too early on, are just setting themselves up for failure, is when you ask for $20 million valuation at your early stage, what have you done? What you have done is you have locked yourself out of a small exit. A $10 million exit for a founder who owns 50% of it is $5 million. I don't know about most founders. I would love to get $5 million, right? I don't have $5 million. When you raise money at 10, $5 million is a disappointment of an exit. If you raise money at 20, $10 million is a disappointing exit. If you raise 20, even $40 million is a disappointing exit.
Really?
Because it's just 2x. And over 7 years, 8 years, you see, like, man, you're disappointed. Like, it's a disappointing return. But it is not a disappointing return for someone who got a higher stake and who was looking for a cash generating asset.
Yeah.
And usko wahan pe wo exit ho gaya. So think of what your business is capable of. Remember that not a whole lot of businesses are capable of 40, 50x in Pakistan. 40, 50x of $500,000 is manageable. 40, 50x of $20 million is extremely difficult, especially in a country like Pakistan. So this would be my advice to founders: understand the nature of the capital you're taking, understand the strings that are attached with it, and understand that you are just setting yourself up for failure if you're raising too much at a too high of a valuation, unless you know exactly what you're doing.
So let's talk about that briefly then, because unfortunately in Pakistan right now there's this view that seems to be prevailing among a large percentage of founders that fundraising is the goal.
Yeah.
Right? That's the win. पैसे आपने उठा लिया, आप जीत गए. And you mentioned in your talk earlier that you should be losing sleep when you raise money.
Yeah.
Because now you have responsibilities. You owe people money.
Yeah.
So
capital is one of the tools or resources that you need to build a successful business. Yeah. Right? I give people example of Viva, and I give people example of let's take Viva, which is a CRM for pharmaceutical reps, right? Specific CRM. They raise, I think, $2 million in their entire lifestyle. $2 million based in US, etc. The company is worth billions. That's insane amount of return. And what you need to understand is that raising capital is not going to, like, the headline figure, the headline valuation, it doesn't matter. You're building a business. Just if I was a simple carpenter who wanted to build this table, I could probably do it with a small manual saw. Do I need that big machine to just cut this? No, I don't. But if I was setting up a factory to build 5,000 tables a day, I would need much more sophisticated machinery. Should I start with that factory? No. I should start with a manual saw to understand what it is, and I should just spend as little on tools as possible.
Yeah.
Equity is the most expensive form of financing. When you're paying equity to get capital, it's the most expensive thing you can give away. When you're trying to raise too much money early on, you're giving too much equity early on. Your business is not as valuable as it will be 2 years down the line. So if you don't need all that money today, don't take all that money today. Raise a little bit more than what you think you need because you don't know how things will pan out. But you don't need that. So understand the nature of equity before you just go on and do that. Understand the kind of capital your business needs before you go on and just raise for the sake of raising.
Yeah.
It's one of the many things you will need to build a successful business.
Amazing. I keep having these talks with founders who you can see that they're kind of setting themselves up. You have revenue of this much, and all of a sudden you're valuing the business at this much. And I'm like, I can't get from here to there. You can't apply a 100x multiple on revenue or a 200x multiple on revenue because you feel like it. Doesn't work that way.
No, the standard response I hear from founders, but look at this guy. They also raised this much at this much valuation. I'm like, man, that means nothing.
Yeah.
That means absolutely nothing for your own business.
And especially when you hear कि Indonesia में 2017 में इस बंदे ने ये किया था. And I'm like, the context is different. It's
the market is different. What is Indonesia's GDP? How many people? What is the per capita income? It's much different than Pakistan.
Yeah.
It's not the same market. Sure, in certain industries and in certain segments, we have big enough markets, but not in everything, man. Like, I think logistics, B2B supply chain, agri supply chain, fintech, yeah, sure. I think we can make very valuable businesses there. We can make businesses that are worth more than $1 billion. I think Pakistan will have unicorns. I don't think they won't. We won't. I 100% think we will. Because let's also be honest. Look at the global inflation, right? There was a time when unicorn was a big deal in Silicon Valley. Now it's a decacorn. Soon it will be a centicorn. Like it'll be about 100 billion companies. That's what people will be proud of. Now unicorn is the norm. So similarly, by the time the world is moving on to centicorns, I think Pakistan will have a unicorn and we'll be happy about it because overall, but rupee also keeps getting devalued. So there'll be all sorts of issues around that as well. But in terms of valuable business, Pakistan will create unicorns. It's not like that. As a founder, you really need to be sure about why you're doing what you're doing. If it's to make wealth, how much wealth? Do you really want to be 100 millionaire? I mean, you could have a unicorn and own 5% of that business, which results in a $50 million outcome for yourself.
Yeah.
Or you could be 50% owner of a $100 million business. I feel like Pakistan is capable of producing a lot more $100 million businesses.
At this point, for sure.
And exiting a $100 million business. It's palatable. PSX could do it. You could have businesses worth that much on just the Pakistani stock exchange. So it's possible. Either way, your outcome as a founder is $50 million. And do you even need? I don't think anybody needs $50 million. I think people need.
At that point, it's not about need, right?
Yeah, exactly. So if you're looking, and I'm talking about founders who want a better financial outcome for themselves, who want wealth that will help them. Transformative wealth, life-changing wealth, which would give them the freedom that they want to not have to worry about money again. Number changes is different for everyone, but what you actually need is much less than what you think you need. And that can be done not by $1 billion company, that can be done by a
$20 million
$10 million company. It depends on how much of it you own.
Right. So I had this conversation with my 19-year-old the other day, and because he asked me that, when is enough enough? And it's like, it's a very valid question, and it varies dramatically from person to person. There are some people for whom $1 billion is not enough.
Yeah.
And there are other people for whom $500,000 would be life-changing.
Yeah.
Right? And they would literally change the way they live their lives based on that. So,
absolutely.
It's a very personal thing.
Yeah, and also people in Pakistan are willing to do horrible things for very small amounts of money, right? And it's unfortunate. It's their life circumstances, or it's just how they choose to make money. People are willing to kill people for nothing, and it's just a sad reality, right?
Yeah.
But the point is, yeah, on a philosophical note, every desire that we have is a contract of unhappiness that we make with ourselves, right? Okay, we will be unhappy till the time we achieve this. So we should be very careful about what it is that we truly. I mean, it's much easier to say these things
100%.
in a philosophical way, much harder to practice these things on a daily basis. And so yeah. It really does. If you're a founder looking to build a business,
Did you just make that up? That
no, I didn't make that
quotation?
up. I read it somewhere. I'll have to get back to you with the
Because
source.
that was really freakishly deep, man.
But
Even for you.
it's not. I won't take credit for it.
Okay, fine. Because you really had me going for a second. I was like, if Mubariz is just throwing pearls this out there.
It's not mine.
Wow. That was.
Yeah, but
Gave me
I'll
goosebumps for a second.
No, I'll send you. I'll look this up and I'll send you where I read it or heard it, maybe in a podcast. But it's something that resonated, right? That's why I remembered it. But coming back to founders, just be clear about why you're doing it and find less risky, easier ways of doing the same thing. And don't go for the newspaper headlines. I've spoken to founders who have gotten them, the TechCrunch article, everything. It wears off the same day.
Yeah.
Really. You will get a lot of
And
attention.
then the reality hits.
It all happens on the same day. So the morning the article comes out, by evening it will wear off. So
That's not really a long time to enjoy that,
exactly.
right?
Yeah, that's not the high you should be chasing.
Yeah. Brilliant. Okay, so moving on from founders, let's talk about regulators, right?
Yeah.
So, what are some of the challenges that that startups are facing in Pakistan because of regulators, and what can regulators do to actually make that the startup ecosystem sort of more robust, more energetic, easier to work with?
I think one fundamental mindset shift that the regulator needs is the fact that entrepreneurship is now more commonplace in Pakistan. We've had micro entrepreneurs in Pakistan, like from your first person selling the fruit vendor on the street to small shops, etc., mom and pop stores. Those things exist and will exist, etc., forever.
Yeah.
What regulators need to understand is that the regulated formal economy in Pakistan, the reason why it's smaller than the informal economy is because it is still harder to do a formal business in Pakistan than an informal one. It is harder, more cumbersome, more expensive to do, say, incorporate a business and register a business, pay taxes. It's hard to pay tax in Pakistan. While the ease of doing business rankings were something, now they've shut it down, etc. Pakistan was better than maybe 9 countries in the world when it came to paying taxes. So Pakistan was one of the top 10 worst countries.
Top 10 worst countries.
And in a country which wants taxes.
It needs taxes.
Yeah. And there's many reasons to it.
Yeah.
Even the tax consultant, you are taxing that as well, that as a service. So if the tax consultant is charging 100 rupees, you are putting a tax on that service as well. And these are things that we need to change, right? We need to make it easier to do a formal regulated business than an informal one.
Yeah.
That's number one. Number two, the new younger generation in Pakistan that never had capital now has some hope of capital at least, and entrepreneurship is an option. Growing up, my parents were both professionals. I never thought entrepreneurship was an option. My friends whose parents were entrepreneurs or whose families had were generationally entrepreneurs, for them being an employee somewhere wasn't an option. They're like, "Naukri kya karoge? Business karo, dhanda karo," and that's just how it was. But those were much less people, and capital was restricted to those circles for the reasons we discussed earlier. So the regulator needs to understand that the new generation coming in, they're not all thieves. They genuinely want to do businesses in a regulated format. They want to pay their taxes. They want to register, etc. But if you're going to make it so hard for them that that if you're going to discourage them, they want to do these things quicker and faster and move on. They're going to be forced into the informal system. So, for example, when opening a bank account for a company, if you're going to ask for 5 printed documents on a colored letterhead with a stamp, seemingly very small things, but a person who's just started a 3-person company and they're working out of their drawing room, it's difficult.
Yeah.
When you're going to say it, in order to register for Sindh Revenue Board services tax, you need to show an office address, an office lease, or a phone bill. I'm like, man, my business is entirely remote. Coinbase, which is an IPO'd company in the US, in their office field, none. They don't have an office. It's an entirely remote company. They might have spaces for the employees here and there, but there's no registered office. And you can IPO in the US without having a registered office. In Karachi, the Sindh Revenue Board wants me to show a lease agreement for my office.
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing? You're saying, Mubariz, I'm going to make it so hard for you to pay tax that you're going to be like, man, ab main inko kis tarah samjhaun ki I don't have an office or I don't care.
Oh, there are people who've taken on little dukaan somewhere, uske upar tala laga ke rakha hua hai ki yaar ye mera registered office hai.
Bilkul. And that's what we'll be forced to do. So
Yeah.
you are just putting conditions which are forcing people to lie, are forcing people to not comply, you're just dissuading people, right?
Yeah.
So my point is the regulator needs to understand this new economy wants to comply. It's just that we can't make it harder for them to comply. And let's be very honest about the information that we don't need. Information that will not help us regulate them better, information that will not help us collect more tax, information that will not force them to lie or make something up.
Yeah.
So I think this mindset shift is more important than anything else. And then obviously mindset will result in policy, and more important than policy, implementation than that policy. So yeah, but it'll have to begin from that mindset.
So, I think you're going right to the heart of the problem, right? So if you look at FBR, they have a technology division called PRAL.
Yeah.
Right? There are 3 million taxpayers in Pakistan. FBR themselves have identified another 15, 18 million people that need to be filing their taxes. So yes, there is a communication challenge there that you have to convince people to file their taxes in Pakistan. Because लोग कहते हैं यार मेरी तनख्वाह से तो कट रहा है, उनको सब पता है. But it's a responsibility as a citizen of the country to file your taxes. That's one side. The other side of that is that the technology behind your online filing of taxes is so cumbersome, so painful, that you can go through multiple screens of uploading data and then the system can freeze and you will have to start again. Now, there are companies like Apna Tax and others that are ready to connect. They've even got the APIs from them. The connections are done, but there's a policy decision pending from FBR to say, turn on the switch so that these companies can actually start helping people to file their taxes, because the existing infrastructure in the country cannot go from 3 million to 15 million. There's just no way to do it. जो आपका अंकल और उनका चाचा और उनका जो कज़न का बेटा जो टैक्स लोगों के लिए 3-3 हज़ार रुपये में भर रहे हैं, वो 3 मिलियन से 15 मिलियन या 18 मिलियन या 20 मिलियन पे नहीं जा सकते. So how do we make institutions like this understand? Is it an awareness issue? Is it a comprehension issue? Or is there some other motive that I'm not aware of?
I think it's a combination of lack of comprehension, understanding. I think there is an element of incompetence. I would be as blunt as that. I think there is an element of no long-term thinking. It's a fact that there's no one making long-term decisions in Pakistan, because really not enough people are there long-term to make long-term decisions, right? We like to reinvent the wheel every 5 years. Everyone comes in and wants to take credit of everything and not understanding why things were done a certain way. But that's too political. From a more bureaucratic angle, I think again it's a lack of vision, and it's in some situations it's also about it's level of corruption as well, from intellectual corruption to having incentives with people not doing things properly. When you talk about tax services, when you talk about this tax service that you spoke about, and there's a few others, there's the global examples like I dekhu, and if I think about TurboTax, etc. Now, those people lobbied the government to keep taxes complicated enough that people would need someone to help them file it, right? And that's a fact. It's an actual fact. Countries like Singapore, etc., are far more progressive about that. They actually send your returns in your email saying, we have all your data, and this is what we think your tax liability is. If it's any different, let us know. Right? And if I'm a salaried individual, I would love for FBR to just send it to me once a year saying,
wouldn't that be amazing?
Yeah,
that would be
this
game changing.
Yeah. It should be like series of 7-8 questions. It should be like, this is what we've collected, and this is what your salary reported is. Do you have any other income? No. Talk side पे. Do you have any assets that you would like to declare, car, etc. उसमें समझा दें, videos बनाते हैं, बड़ी simple, सही है.
Explainer
videos and say कि this is where you put the user experience, right? Globally, I think governments are also shifting towards, and I know US, there was a presidential order on this, on the government departments improving their user experience, so that, because government is a service provider, essentially, right? And they need to think of us, the citizens, not as their subjects, but as
their customers
of their service.
Yeah.
And in this day and age, people can get up and leave, and that's why most people get up and leave. They need to think of us as that, and they need to think, yeah, if my objective is to collect taxes, the last thing I should do is make it so hard to pay taxes that people don't, right? I need to get...
it seems straightforward enough, right?
It is. But what people like to in the government believe that what's the big deal if the person has to pay someone 15,000 plus services tax on top to file their tax? What's the big deal if he has to go get 5 things attested, 7 things? Like, what is the big deal? Iski kaam hai, nahi karega, jail mein dal denge. We'll throw them in jail. With that mindset, people will just not do it. And you don't have jails big enough. You can't put 13, 15 million people in jail. It just won't work. You have to just make it easier, because most people are not thieves. Most people want to comply. And that fundamental understanding is what's required.
So, but you see, it's not the actual act of putting someone in jail. It's the implied threat of putting someone in jail that gets them to corruption, right? So,
yeah, because that's a tool that you can use.
Yeah.
Trust me, you can, if in a tax net of 15 million people, you can do a lot more corruption. Like, you have a much larger market for corruption.
Yeah.
I think it works for everyone.
No, but the problem with that is that once you employ technology, it cuts the corruption out of the mix, right?
Somewhat, yeah.
I would say it reduces it by 70-80%, because for the majority of people, the issue lies in those gray areas or black areas जहाँ पे वो उनको करनी है corruption, ठीक है ना, वो एक अलग चीज़ है. But for the majority of people, the ones you rightly point out are not thieves, who are looking to comply. They don't know how to comply.
It's too hard for them to comply.
Yeah.
And I spend way too much time on other things anyway. एक तो मैं पैसे भी दे रहा हूँ, ऊपर से मैं वो भी. It's like me going to buy a burger from KFC, and they say, listen, to pay for this burger, you need to go 3 streets across, hire this guy who will charge you money, and we'll put tax on that money as well. And then that guy will tell you how to pay, right?
Or he'll buy the burger for you and send
whatever
send
it is, however you want to take it. I'll be like, man, I don't want this burger.
Yeah,
Simple as that. It's not worth it. So yeah, especially this is money for which I have a realization that I'm not getting any burger. Right? I'm not getting shit for this, right? So I'm like, yeah, I don't have healthcare, my roads suck, I don't feel safe. What am I paying this money for? And on top, I have to go through all these hoops.
Yeah.
So we need to understand as a country where we stand on these things, and just focus on making it easier where we can for the citizens. Yeah.
So what are 1 or 2 things that regulators can do specifically to try and make lives easier for startups and founders who are looking for investments, things like that?
2 things. Make it easier to comply, like we just spoke about. And I think second is stop banning things and allow more things to happen. for example, TikTok ban,
Crypto ban.
Crypto ban. So one of the biggest misfortune for Pakistan was that we got on the 3G spectrum too late. We delayed that by 4 years or something, right? Similarly, I think we are delaying. I know I can understand the reasons as well. We have FATF in which we have made a lot of progress, etc. And we don't want to lose all that progress. But if you're going to deprive Pakistanis from the next big wave of wealth generation, the best ones are going to leave. The ones who can't leave or are stuck are just going to be deprived of that opportunity. Right? And this is what we did with the whole tech. The reason why we are so late, the reason why 300 something million is record breaking for Pakistan, but is chump change or one round in India or in other parts which are more developed, is that our entire digital ecosystem just got delayed because of our 3G thing.
Yeah.
Because of that penetration and all as well, that we came to the party late. If we can do the same thing with crypto, I think it's a big misfortune as well, right? If you're going to keep banning TikTok, now the problem is they ban TikTok for objectionable content, but there are other social media where objectionable content exists. The real problem is that no one in government is on TikTok, right? Everyone is on Twitter, so they'll never ban Twitter, but they just don't care. What they ignore is the fact that there's a creator economy behind it. There are people whose livelihood depends on it, or self-actualization depends on it. They spend time building a following on a platform. That time and that effort can't be replicated immediately in another platform. They've lost their entire sense of being.
कोई understanding नहीं है. बिल्कुल.
So, but आप उसको blanket ban. So, allow more things to happen. Grow as regulators and learn how to regulate instead of banning. That's lazy regulation, right? And it's actually far more harmful for Pakistanis. And we have talent in very different areas, right? अब ये तो हर किसी को नहीं बोल सकते कि वीडियोस नहीं बनाओ, पढ़ो जाके. स्कूल भी इतने नहीं है, इतनी यूनिवर्सिटीज़ भी नहीं है कि बंदा पढ़े. और ना वो आपने मीन्स प्रोवाइड की हुई हैं. So yeah, I would say that these big mindset shifts is what we truly need as regulators.
No, it's amazing because I recently learned that Binance has 20 million accounts in Pakistan, and Binance is not an approved app in Pakistan.
Anywhere, most places it isn't. Yeah.
Right. So, but the reality is that they're out there and it's happening because you cannot deny these people the opportunities that the rest of the world is having. They will not accept it. They will find a workaround.
And the problem is they will lose out.
Yeah.
We are more unsafe because the money that you're thinking will leave Pakistan and or anything else, Pakistanis will end up losing those money to frauds.
Yeah.
We will stay off the grid more. You're forcing more and more to go off the thing. Allow basic acquisition of crypto. Put a limit on it. Approve the exchanges. It's not that complicated. Be like you can only open a legal wallet if you disclose the KYC, make me do everything, and tax me on it. India has just done it.
Sure.
It's not impossible. It's possible. It doesn't do anything to FATF. It doesn't do anything to anyone. All
it does is bring you into the 21st century. So.
And let people, allow them a path to do it legally. And if they still don't do it legally, then that's illegal to anyway. And those people will still do it illegally, the ones. So my point is, allowing it is not really harmful for us. And that's something that truly needs to be understood. But I think Pakistani regulators are just scared of anything that's new. And it's easy for them to just ban things than anything else.
Amazing. Mubariz, I know you have places to be and people to see. Thank you so much for your time. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been one of the more exciting episodes of Deep Dive with OA. Mubariz, thanks so much for being on the show. Really appreciate it.
Really, thank you so much for having me.